empty the chamber on them. And how do you do that? We're 6 seconds, 20 feet, everything you got. Everything you got. Turn that shit up. Let's go. Welcome to the Scoop World Order Transfer Portal Edition. We have some crazy stuff going on. A lot of big rumors. Drake May, Caleb Williams. We've heard about 1,000 different names, guys who could be on the move. We have no idea what's real, what's fake, but it is officially Steelers season. We're going to talk about that for a little bit. But first, as always, we are thankful for and we are grateful for you guys. Thank you guys for joining us. This is a crazy time of year. The portal makes it extra spicy. Early signing day is here. On Wednesday, we'll have a big show on that all day. See who we get. Do we get Mateo? Does Brandon Ennis sign? There's a lot of stuff popping right now, so we'll see how it goes. With that being said, I'm going to bring in my good friend, Nevada Buck. Nevada, how are you tonight? You're in the green. Give me 1 second. Hang on. You're in the green room, but it doesn't mean go, but now it means go. Go ahead, Nevada.
Crazy times, man. The transfer portal's changing everything. It's like changing the recruiting calendar and when guys are coming in, when guys are coming out. So lots of madness going on right now.
Yeah, there's always craziness, and with the portal, it just never stops. What are some of the craziest rumors that you've heard from big names in the portal? I've heard Drake May was someone that Ohio State reached out to. Who are some other names that you've heard while you've been doing this?
Well, I mean, today I wake up and I hear about Marvin Harrison Jr. potentially going to USC. Started as an internet rumor, and I'm like, that is one crazy internet rumor. So I call some of my sources and I'm like, hey, that's pretty crazy, right? And there's like, that's just as crazy as Caleb Williams coming to Ohio State. I mean, think about it. Ohio State's they've got an opening at quarterback next year. They've got a Mecca and Marvin Harrison Jr. to throw to, quarterback-friendly system. I mean, why can't Caleb Williams come to Ohio State? I ask that question to you. It's a reasonable question to ask. Why isn't Ohio State a logical landing spot for him?
Yeah, I mean, if you could put anything out there, you can also put anything out there. I mean, like Marvin Harrison Jr. has no chance of going to USC, so. And someone made a podcast about it, so we figured, well, let's do a little tit for tat. We've got some guys. If you were Ryan Day, who are some guys you would go after that maybe aren't in the portal, or some guys that would fill some holes for the team next year?
Well, I think the first thing is let's take a step back and realize recruiting's changing. And I was talking to a guy today who I consider one of the smartest guys in college football, and he was like, "Look, I would change my recruiting completely. I would go, instead of offering 25 kids a year, 24 kids a year, whatever it is, I'd offer 8 or 10 of the best kids in the country, and I'd use the next 15 or 20 spots just on portal kids." And I thought about that, and I thought, man, what a crazy idea. But then the more I thought about it, I'm like, that's really, really smart. The idea that you're going to either invest your time, effort, energy in a kid that you're not sure how they're going to turn out, or you can invest it in kids that you've already seen at the college level, you've already got tape on, you already know how they're going to compete playing up against men. I mean, that's really the move. And I know as crazy as that sounds, that's really the move. It's I think the days of signing 25 high school seniors is done, and I think the smart teams are the ones that are getting ahead of it, and that's why as much as it pains me to say, I mean, look at Michigan. Michigan's brought in 3 starting offensive linemen out of the portal already this year, and I mean that was unthinkable just a couple of years ago, and now it's completely changed. And Ohio State has got to change. I mean, to their credit, I think they've been more active. They've casted a wider net in this transfer portal season than I've ever seen or heard of them doing before, and I think it's going to yield some benefits for them. But I just think a fundamentally different approach has got to be taken. And like you said, it's not just kids in the portal. It's who do you want? It's being able to go out and look at it and say, what are positions of need? Where do we need to get kids from? And then how do we go about, making it happen and landing them? That's really the question. And you need a left tackle. Go get the best left tackle and offer them a deal and get them. And plenty of guys out there, plenty of spots available, and I'm just hoping that Ohio State is really willing to embrace this. And I know this goes against kind of the family atmosphere, kinder, gentler type of approach. But I think it's the right approach going forward for Ohio State in the year 2022.
I think it's like the NFL now. I mean, honestly, you got to figure out, do you build from within and go slow and hope that guys that aren't maybe college material or guys that might not have proven that they can play at the college level, or do you go like the LA Rams and sell your draft picks and go get proven stars and not really care about the locker room, not really care about developing from them? Because, Les Snead, a guy, who is an LA guy, is a guy that, he doesn't have a draft pick for a long time because he traded for Matt Stafford, Jalen Ramsey, Von Miller. I mean, he loaded that team up and they won the ultimate prize. They won the Super Bowl. That's kind of how I envision teams figuring out what to do in the portal, because, if you can go get proven guys, and it doesn't mean you're poaching guys directly from Alabama or somewhere, but you go get a really good player from the MAC, like a Khalil Mack. You go get a kid from a lesser Big Ten school. You go get a kid from from a coaching staff that got fired or whatever. I mean, you can get some really good players. Like, a 3-year starting guard at Purdue just went to UCLA. 2 Stanford starters went to Michigan. Arizona State starter went to Michigan. Michigan got maybe the best freshman linebacker in the country from Nebraska. He was the number 1 overall guy on the portal big board. He'd signed at Michigan. And again, are you going to upset guys in the locker room? Sure. But I mean, when you're a coach, your job's to win. And I think Jim Harbaugh actually being a head coach in the NFL, I know Ryan Day spent time as a position coach in the NFL. You figure out, when you're managing this roster, man, not everybody's going to be happy. Like, when Jimmy Garoppolo, when they draft Trey Lance 3rd overall and they mortgage the future to get the kid, Jimmy Garoppolo wasn't happy with that. But at the same token, when he broke his leg, Jimmy Garoppolo stepped in and played. And I think that's part of the gig when you're managing these kids. And be like, look, guys, like, you might want to sit there and be like, okay, I'm a sophomore and there's a senior tackle, and if I stay and I work hard and I'm the backup, then I'll ascend to being the starter. Well, anymore, they could bring in a guy who's a 3-year starter at Northwestern or Purdue or Auburn, and he could be the starting right tackle. So there's no more really counting and saying, oh, if I wait my turn, bide my time, like that's all out the door now. Nevada, do you see that?
No, Kurt, hold on to that one topic just for a second, because you were the classic example of a kid that was kind of an underrated kid coming out of high school, went there, looked at the depth chart, did your thing. How would this change the calculus for you? How would the portal situation, the idea that if you saw Ohio State bringing in 3 new offensive linemen, would that have changed anything for you? Or, I mean, you've coached there, you played there, you're the right person. How would that change the calculus for you, if at all? Or would that change nothing?
You mean if I was a freshman who was trying to get a scholarship, or I was a guy that was already on campus?
Freshmen waiting to get a scholarship.
I won't have gotten one. Period. I mean, if they could have got out and got 3 college level guys, and and that's what these kids are running into now, like that are hoping to get Division I offers, is that they're hoping to get Ohio State, but now that Ohio State's trying to take 5 to 7 guys in the portal, then that soaks up 5 to 7 scholarships that they would have had open. So but again, like there's also guys that are leaving Ohio State. So the roster churn is real. I think that teams like Ohio State they're going to be slower than ever to go on like the 3-star special guys from Ohio, like me. Like they waited on me till December of my senior year. Like there's kids that are bent and sad and emotional and emo because they have to wait till like their junior year. And I was like, I waited till December of my senior year to take the offer. And then once I got it, I ran with it. Because once they give you the offer and you sign up and you show up to camp, everybody gets all the same stuff then. Everybody gets the same workout clothes, same opportunities, and you just got to make the most of it. It's not like the guys that got offered as juniors got like, a head start on anything. Everybody starts from square one. So, but no, I think a guy like me, a developmental guy, if they're looking for a closer to finished product in the portal, and I can't blame them, because the thing you got to realize, like if you're Ryan Day and these coaches, is these guys all rent the whistles and they all rent the Ohio State pullovers, because no one's there forever. And if you don't win, you're gone. So, what's the most important year for Ryan Day other than, to finish out this year? Next year. That's it. Not a guy who's a 5-year guy who might be able to start as a junior and senior and that kind of thing. I mean, you need guys that can play next year, which is why, if Ryan Day rocked the boat by going into the transfer portal this year to get a guy to start a quarterback next year, and that's a rumor, then guess what? Who cares? Because Ryan's going to win next year because, next year he's got Wisconsin at Wisconsin. He's got Notre Dame at Notre Dame, Michigan at Michigan. We only have 6 home games, and we have a new quarterback and a new O-line. So it's like, and the natives are restless. So, I mean, he can't wait around for a 2024 quarterback to show up and save the day. Like, he's got to go win some stuff next year. So, again, I like it and hate it. I think that, the roster and the brotherhood and all that is dead. Like, that doesn't exist anymore. I think that it's the NFL. I think that, it'd be like if you started training camp in the NFL and there's 90 guys on the team and they cut it down to 53 plus, 15 or so on practice squad. But you talk about, all 90 of us are a brotherhood. I'd be like, no. People say that, like 30 guys are going to get cut, 37 guys are going to get cut, and they're going to have to go home and figure out life. They're going to have to look at their wife, their kids, and say, look, hey, babe, I didn't make it. I got to go do whatever, sell trucks, sell insurance, which I've done both. Love both jobs, great jobs. But, you're not in the league. You're not in the NFL more. You're not in the show anymore. And that happens to 40% of the workforce every single year. So it's just kind of moving into college football now where it's dog eat dog, and kids that, the thing that is really interesting is like, when these kids come out of high school, there's kids that are, kind of segmented. Okay, he's a lower Big Ten kid. He's a MAC kid. He's a good MAC player. He's a high tier Big Ten SEC type player. And then there's like the cream of the crop guys, which are Alabama, Ohio State, Georgia, Clemson type offers. Those are like, one of those 4 go on you, then you're like, you get offers from everywhere. But now, if say I was the Ohio State kid, my year in Ohio, I was the only kid from Ohio State that committed to Ohio State. But in reality, there were Mike McGlynn, who went to Pitt, could have played at Ohio State easily. There were 3. Corey Lichtensteiger went to Bowling Green, played like 7 years in the NFL. He could have came to Ohio State. There's a lot of guys that were in my class that didn't get offered that went on to great college careers and great NFL careers. And, if the portal existed back then, we probably would have gone after those guys because they would have filled holes. Like Corey Lichtensteiger probably would have started at center, next to me after my freshman year because he was a 4-year starter in the MAC, and McGlynn started 4 years at Pitt, and those guys were both draft picks and good players. And that's like the thing is like it's like guys that you beat out in the recruiting camps over the summer. You're not going to be beating them out anymore because they can actually come in and join you. What are your thoughts on that, Nevada? That was a fantastic question because that really was something I was digging back on.
Yeah, well, I just always wonder about that. I always wonder about how that would have affected a 3-star Kirk Barton kind of going through the process. How that would have affected you once you were on campus. If you see these guys coming in and maybe slotting ahead of you when you've been waiting, sitting there waiting. At that point, does that drive you out the door? Do you leave? Go? I mean, I know we can argue these things both ways, but I think what's inarguable is that college football has changed, and Ohio State's got to change with it. And I think for Ohio State, one of the things we've talked a lot about this. I know this turns off a lot of people, but when we start talking about it, but NIL, they've got to get their stuff together in terms of name, image, and likeness. They've got to kind of get these collectives under control. They need to find some big hitter to run these things, coordinate this activity, focus the activities on the existing roster, the transfer kids, and then the high school kids. But look, it's a time of change. I've hated a lot of it, but I look at it and kind of go, look, at the end of the day, I'm an Ohio State fan. I know no matter what happens when they tee it up against Georgia on December 31st, I'm going to be on the edge of my seat. We're a 2-game winning streak away from this team being known as possibly the greatest Ohio State team in the long history of the program. So I can't wait. Lots of good things going on, and I'll try to focus on the positive instead of the negative, and hopefully we get some good news in the portal here in the meantime.
Yeah, and for me, I think it's if you're good and aggressive and you get after it, I think the portal can ensure your viability forever, basically. Because when you're losing Paris Johnson, you got to remember where Ohio's situated. We're situated like dead smack in the middle of the MAC conference. We've got like 5 MAC schools. We have Akron, Toledo, Kent, Bowling Green, and again, people like Buffalo. They're all kind of right around. So it's like and people laugh, but I'm like, dude, there are first round offensive linemen that come out of the MAC. There are impact defensive players that come out of the MAC. And I mean, the thing that's going to be interesting now is I don't think any of those guys are going to make it 3 years at the MAC because they'll be going to Bama, Georgia, Clemson, Ohio State. Like the Khalil Macks of the world are not going to see a 3-year career at Buffalo ever again. Like they're going to be off to greener pastures. But I think that, you got to farm those schools, man. Like you got to find some of these good linemen, and the thing about the MAC is it's probably the most transient conference because the head coaches in the MAC, they're either coming or going. There's nobody that's a 30-year head coach in the MAC. They're either doing great and they go up to the Big Ten or they go up to the SEC, or they're not doing great and they get fired and they go be, a coordinator somewhere. I think it's Sean Fisher or the head coach at Kent State, who was really good, and they were 24th in the nation in offense last year, literally left to go with Dion to Colorado to be the offensive coordinator. So, I mean, when that coach leaves, there's a lot of guys that are disgruntled. If there's good players and they want to explore their options, they're going in the portal and they're going to go shopping and see, what kind of offers they can get. And I just know that, with a lot of these kids, the smart kids are tampering like crazy through the back doors, through the agents to figure out who will offer me, who will have me. It's like Jansen Dunn, he's in the portal, goes and visits Kentucky, and then he declares to Kentucky like after 3 days or whatever it was. So it's an interesting deal. Nevada, if you were again Ryan Day or Mark Pantoni, which positions would you be shopping for right now in the portal?
Well, I mean, clearly we've talked about the offensive line ad nauseum. I mean, you've got to be looking there. I mean, frankly, at quarterback next year, we've got we've got Devin Brown and we've got Kyle McCord, which I'm optimistic on both of them, but they're unknown quantities. So, do you go out and try to snag an established quarterback? We've seen some quarterbacks play against Ohio State this year that I would take, and I think for Ohio State, it's really it's the most important position on the field, and I think it's what do you do if somebody presented himself or somebody's at a smaller school that you could make an offer to? But I mean, quarterback is definitely something that I would look at. Defensively, we need some impact defensive linemen, especially some interior defensive linemen. So can you go out and find a big war daddy out there in terms of turning that loose? And then you've got defensive backs. We've had the defensive back story kind of going on. So look, we've got positions up and down the line where we need to upgrade, and I just don't think we're going to do it with this rifle shot approach of a guy here, a long snapper here, a backup USC linebacker or something like that. I mean, like we need to go out and get the big dogs, and that's going to require a concerted, concentrated, focused approach on that and a real commitment to doing it. And I'm seeing Ohio State starting to nudge in that area, and that gives me hope that they're figuring it out. But I mean, if you're not bringing in, I know people have said, "Oh, it'll normalize. You won't be bringing in 8, 10. You won't be churning that much of your roster." But I think the good teams will. I think the good teams will be churning that much of their roster because it's an opportunity to get better. And it's like we've used the example of playing cards. If we're playing cards against each other, and I get to keep throwing my cards in and drawing cards until I get the hand that I like, and you got to play with a pad hand, I'm going to beat you. And I think that's the way you got to look at churning your roster. If you get to keep turning the cards in and get known quantities, I even get to pick my cards. I'll take those 3 kings and add that to the king in my hand. I think that's the way we got to look at it, and I think Ohio State's got to embrace that new reality.
Yeah, I agree. Because it's to me, it's like the NFL. Like when you're in the NFL, they're drafting kids every year, they're signing kids every year. They don't really care about roster chemistry. I mean, you see, when Carson Wentz was the franchise guy for the Eagles, they drafted Jalen Hurts in the second round. And guess what? The best man won, and Jalen Hurts is the lead dog for the NFL MVP right now. And every year, when I was in the NFL, you pay attention to the draft, you pay attention to what alignment they're bringing in. I don't think it's any different. Is it going to be as warm and fuzzy as it used to be? No. But is it, is that a bad thing? I don't think so. I mean, because if you're earning your spot and you're earning your money, make them bring in a guy that can beat you out, because one of the big issues with when I played was there wasn't a portal, and guys that would get beat out that were older guys would get beat out by younger guys, and they would just kind of coast for 2-3 years and just basically be like deadwood. They do enough to not get kicked off the team. They do everything that was prescribed, all the workout stuff, but they're not working to get better because there's no out for them. They're not going to go. Back in the day, they weren't going to go to the portal and go play 1AA football if they could stay at Ohio State and get the same scholarship check, get the same sweatshirt, get the same bowl ring, all that garbage. But now you have a way to churn your roster and make it better and build depth and throw some heat on there. And again, if guys if they're not doing what they need to do, they can go hit the portal. And I wouldn't feel bad because then they can go play at the level that they can play at. And that's what we what's different now. I think Michigan, when they go out and get the Remington finalist center, and then I don't know if he won the Remington this year, but I think he won the Remington this year, and he was all Big Ten this year. The kid from Virginia, that's enormous, and then we're going to lose probably 2 tackles, probably Luke Whippler. Maybe, I can't imagine Matt Jones stays for a 6th year when he ran out at senior day. Maybe he does. I don't know. But, 6 years on a rebuilding O-line, that's a long time, dude. So I don't know. Any other things? We talked practice a little bit about the Nugget. You think Jaden Ballard is rising? Talk a little bit about that, Nevada, and we'll wrap this because it is Packers on Monday Night Football.
Yeah, no, I think Ohio State, we've been talking about, Jaden Ballard a little bit as being kind of that wide receiver, that next guy up that's kind of, maybe emerging out of that young wide receiver group to kind of give us a little bit more depth. I think he's a name to watch for in the bowl game. He's a guy that can maybe provide an element that Ohio State really hasn't demonstrated as much this year, and I think he could play a big role in the Ohio State offense against Georgia. Another guy that we talked about who's kind of been a forgotten man, but I really think is going to play a key role for Ohio State is Josh Proctor. I think Josh Proctor is going to have a big game against Georgia. I think it's a perfect matchup for a game like him. You're looking for guys that are impact players, guys that can make those big game-changing plays, guys that can cover the tight end, can also bring it at the line of scrimmage, and Josh is that kind of guy. So I think those are a couple of names to watch for if you're an Ohio State fan. Ohio State has really had a kind of a sneaky good bowl prep, and they've kind of been serious. They've really kind of embraced this underdog role. I think for all the noise and all the swirling that's going on outside the program, you're really kind of sensing kind of a quiet resolve inside the program and kind of a us against the world. Nobody's giving us a chance. It's really taken a lot of the pressure off of the Buckeyes, off of the staff. And I think they're going to acquit themselves quite nicely against the Bulldogs. I think it's going to be a better than expected performance. Anybody that's looking for Ohio State to get blown out, I'm telling you, it's not going to happen. Ohio State's going to be there. I don't know. I'm not ready to call it a predictive victory yet, but I am telling you they're having a very good run up to the Bulls. I like the plan. I like the preparation. I like kind of the resolve of the Buckeyes, and I think they're going to acquit themselves nicely.
Yeah, and to me, I think that the Michigan loss, I hate saying this out loud because people roll their eyes and think this is the dumbest thing ever, but I think there is sometimes benefit to losing before you get to the playoffs because I think these guys realize that they're not as good as they thought they were. Do they really want to go out like that against Georgia? Because, in my junior year in 2006, we lost to Florida. We were undefeated all year. And I thought we were okay. I didn't think we were great, but we won every game. So, when you win every game, you kind of think that you're better than you are, and you don't ever get that recalibration of a loss. And, to get smacked at home by Michigan and to get just ridiculed by the community and Buckeye Nation and your classmates and everything, that's hard. And it's hard on these kids. And these kids are all sensitive. They all read all the trash that people write about them online. And to me, I would just, just quietly to say, look, if we go beat this Georgia team, you could just kind of instead of talking and running your mouth, you could just shove it straight up people's hind ends, basically, because you're going to be like, look, you guys didn't believe in us. Don't jump back on the bandwagon. Don't be big Buckeye fans after we go and pull this off. Because, when we lost to Florida in 2006, I knew that we weren't trending the right way. Our Michigan game, we barely won 42-39. And, we show up to Florida and they just beat us down. We lose our best player in the first play. But, if we would have lost somehow and still made in the championship, I think that gives the coaching staff the ammunition to really get after you because you're not, oh, we're undefeated. Oh, we're this or that, or, oh, we're the greatest, or, oh, you spend from November until January hearing about how great you are. and it softened the team up. It softened the coaches up, softened the players up, and then you run into a buzzsaw and you get killed. So like these guys actually got the buzzsaw a game early, and now with the magic of the playoffs, they get to be the 4 seed and they get to get into the show, and they get a chance to do about it. Because like after we lost to Florida, we were done. Like that, when you lose the national championship game, you never play with those guys again. Like the whole thing, it just ends. There's no, hey, let's get them next week. Hey, let's fight back. That's it. So it's going to be interesting to see what these guys do. I think your Josh Proctor thing is very notable. We got that tip that he's kind of lining up at Sam linebacker to help combat the 2 tight end look that these guys run. That is something that'd be interesting. Nevada, he started off as a starter, a guy that Jim Knowles projected could be an All-American, and then his role just diminished profoundly. After the first drive of the game against Notre Dame, he was benched. Have you ever seen a season go like Josh Proctor's, a guy that was a preseason All-American, go to just basically persona non grata and basically like a special teamer? Have you seen that, or how often have you seen that?
No, I've never seen it, and
No.
it's been weird. But there's been a lot of the rotations this year on both sides of the ball that have been absolutely just head scratchers. And that you try to come up with some sort of a narrative or something to explain it, or something that you've heard, or well, maybe they didn't do this, or maybe this guy played better, or maybe this guy. But some of the things are just inexplicable. But here we are at the end of the year, and Josh Proctor now is going to play a key role in the defense against the Georgia Bulldogs, which is kind of where we thought he'd be at the beginning of the year. So somehow through all these twists and turns, the world kind of makes sense at the end, which it generally does. So, I know he's one of the few guys on that defense that, that's scary. You look at the defensive players and you kind of go, who do you have on the defensive side that's just a bad man that can really, play with those SEC guys and really turn the game around with one really big hit, or if you had said who's going to make that big play, you've got a couple of guys that come to mind, but Josh Proctor's definitely one of them. So I think it's going to be a game of big plays. I think it's going to be a game of big hits, and whoever gets the most bounces and a little bit of luck is going to win this game, because it's going to be a close game coming down to it. And like I said, I'm glad Josh is back where I thought he should be at the beginning of the year, and I think he's going to, like I said, I think he's going to play a huge role in the game against Georgia. And you can mark that down and hold me to that one.
Yeah, I think like what we need him to do is go forward, attack, be physical. When you're playing Sam, you're not asked to cover like you are a deep safety or a strong safety, where they're moving them back and forth between. So I think that makes total sense. I think that they've got to come up with a solution for the 2 tight end stuff, because this is, 2 tight ends is not a very common thing anymore. And when you have 2 guys that are first, second round tight ends, Bauer's probably a top 10 pick after next year when he can go out, and the other kid's, 6'7", 290 or whatever he is. He's huge. And you got to have someone that can lay the wood to those guys and isn't scared of those guys, because there's some big dudes. We're going to wrap this thing. And this is one of the funniest chats I've ever seen. Oh my God. Ryan Day is a 7-on-7 lingerie bowl coach. Ryan Day has made us soft as peanut butter. Man, you guys are brutal tonight, guys. But hey, we got a chance to win a national title still, and there's 4 teams that can say that right now. So that's a real thing. Now you got to go take advantage of the opportunity. Nevada, you got anything to close this thing out before we go watch your boy Baker Mayfield and the LA Rams invade Lambeau?
No, like I said, I think Ohio State's, for Ohio State fans, Ohio State's having a quietly good bowl run up right now, and I think they're going to surprise you. I think for Ohio State fans, like you said, to reserve your spot on the bandwagon, man. Get it early, because you don't want to be one of those guys that's jumping on late after the Georgia game. So it's there's plenty of room on the bandwagon. It's just right now it's just me and Mr. Barton, but we're inviting other people to jump on.
Does it feel like Clemson in 2020 at all? When we had one of our own writers pick Clemson to win that game, and it's like it kind of feels like a lot of people were like scared of Clemson because they beat us in 19 and Lawrence and all that. Does it feel like that at all to you?
No, it does, and I remember against Clemson, one of the things that Ohio State and Ryan Day did is they let the offense hang out, they aired it out, they were going over the top on those guys, and if you're going to go against Georgia, that's what you want to do against Georgia. And a guy like Jaden Ballard's a guy that can take the top right off of it. And I think you're going to see more of that. And I think if Georgia's got a weakness on defense, they don't have many weaknesses, but they're not great against the pass. And CJ Stroud can spin it. And if you give him a chance, we've got an offensive line that can protect. If you're smart about what you're doing, if you create some doubt for them, you give him some time and give him some space, and some big things can happen. And I think Ohio State's going to be looking to make big plays. And I think that's an advantage to Ohio State. And it definitely has a Clemson 2020. I mean, before that game, there wasn't a lot of people. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't like we weren't huge underdogs in that game, but not a lot of people were kind of wondering if we were going to be able to play against Trevor Lawrence and after what had happened the year before, and we kind of took those guys apart. Now I don't know if we'll do that to Georgia, but I think we're going to play. I think we're going to play well, and I think they've got a great game plan to do it.
I do too. I feel better every day. They're going to move the pocket. They're not going to let Jalen Carter, big number 88, the D tackle, to tee off. You got to help Matt Jones too, man, because that guy is a monster. He's number one on Mel Kiper's big board right now. So he's a guy who's probably going to be a top 3 pick at defensive tackle. So, but when he's a defensive tackle, I'd rather be a top 3 D tackle than a quarterback. So, I think you just got to help Matt wherever he lines up, you got to help. Luke Whippler has to go to that side, flip the protection, chip the guy, move the pocket. There's about 50 different mechanisms you can do to help out the guards in pass protection versus a guy like Jalen Carter. I hope we use every single one of them. So I'm going to wrap this thing up. Any final words, Nevada, before we close this thing down?
Go Packers. Beat Baker Mayfield. So I hope to embarrass that guy tonight in Lambeau Field. So we can all watch that and laugh.
I can't wait to watch it. So, well, we appreciate you guys. This was a tongue-in-cheek episode, obviously poking fun at some people that put out that Marvin Harrison was going to USC. So we had to return the fire and be somewhat facetious. So we appreciate you guys tuning in. I'm going to jump on BuckeyeHuddle.com for about the next 45 minutes until the game starts. But appreciate you guys as always. The huddle is on fire. I'm going to have Bill Green on tomorrow to talk a little signing day forecast. We'll do a signing day show on Wednesday. We're getting close to Christmas. If you guys have a big Buckeye fan in the family, a subscription to BuckeyeScoop.com is the greatest thing you could ever get them. We literally are working every day on it. It's a blast. We have a fantastic member. We just actually handed out some paid forward deals to some of our armed servicemen, including an Army Ranger who I went to lunch with today. Fantastic guy. Some of the greatest stories I've ever heard are true heroes. So if you guys want to join the best community for Ohio State football, BuckeyeScoop.com is it. Our board is absolutely nuts right now. It's constantly refreshing, constant new information. Banks getting back from his vacation, so we'll be podcasting with him tomorrow. So hope you guys are doing great. I hope you guys have a great rest of your night. Thank you guys for tuning in. Appreciate you guys as always. Bang that like button if you can. And sorry, I believe Siri, of course, is stalking me, but appreciate you guys as always. I hope you guys have a great rest of your night. Thank you, Buckeye Nation, and thank you, Scoop family. It is close to time to beat the Bulldogs. So get on BuckeyeScoop.com, get all the latest on what is going on in bowl practice in the Woody Hayes. We have more reports coming every day. Appreciate you guys. You guys have a great night. Go Bucks.